Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome back for another episode of Gates to Goodness. I am your host, Youssef Kromah, where every night we'll be visiting a different gate of goodness in hopes to increase in goodness and nearness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala during this month of Ramadan. We'll be knocking on all the doors of goodness and asking Allah ta'ala to let us in His blessed month. As Allah ta'ala says in the Quran, Hal jaza'ul ihsani ila al-ihsan. Is there any reward for good except good? So we want nothing but goodness in hopes that that goodness turns to excellence and that excellence turns to the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now we have a wonderful guest, a very special guest here today, who is our beloved Imam Farid Rasool from the masjid in Chester, all the way from Masjid Sabiqun in Chester, Pennsylvania, very close to my home city of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. The Imam is my personal Imam, my personal mentor, so I'm honored to have him on the show. A great mentor of mine, a great friend of mine, a great brother in Islam. So the Imam, as I said, he's the Imam of Chester, Masjid Sabiqun in Pennsylvania, and he is also the chairman of the youth education committee of the Majlis Shura. He is also the Imam that takes people to Hajj every year. He's been to Hajj over 18 times, inshallah ta'ala, 18 times, and he's looking to continue this work until Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala calls him back, and we ask Allah ta'ala to give him tawfiq. The Imam is also very active in the community in terms of youth development, in terms of seeing that the youth are sought to, in terms of building educational programs for the youth, and also seeing now that youth can make it overseas, such as myself, to learn the religion of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and to bring it back to educate our communities and to bridge gaps between the elder and the younger generation. So we would like to introduce our beloved Imam. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Alhamdulillah, it's a pleasure to have you here, Imam.
Alhamdulillah.
The topic today is going to be another giant such as yourself, Muhammad Ali. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala be pleased with him. As we know, he passed away a few days, and inshallah ta'ala is going to have his janazah. But we would like to honor him by talking about his legacy, talking about the sort of things that he stood for, and bringing to light some of the things that people may not necessarily know about him. The first thing that comes to people's minds usually when they think about Muhammad Ali is his physical capabilities within the ring, which is, was unmatched, the greatest heavyweight of all time, in my mind, undisputably. But we want to talk about some of the things, the roles that he played in the community in terms of his activism, how he, was a philanthropist, how he, struggled with racism and inequalities within the world, and how he stood up, for his morals in spite of all the powers that be seeking to take him down. So the first question, we're just going to have a brief account of Muhammad Ali. Who was he to you? What did he mean to you? What influences did he have on your life?
Alhamdulillah. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa la sharika lah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan abduhu wa rasuluhu sallallahu wa sallam. Alhamdulillah, we thank Allah that He permitted us to live to witness once again this beautiful month of Ramadan, which has come to us. The opportunity for all the human beings to come into realignment. I call this the opportunity where the human being has the chance to come in for their tune-up, their annual tune-up. They bring themselves into the realignment of that being in line with, as you said, the excellence that turns into the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So we're seeking to be pleasing to Him, and we thank Allah that He has let us live to get to this month. And we know that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam has said that as he was going up the steps to make the khutbah, and he got to the second step, he said Ameen. He said Ameen on the first step, and the second step he said Ameen, the third step he said Ameen. And we know that the first step was, they asked him afterwards, because when he got up to the podium, he turned around and he just gave the khutbah as normal. And so that was a strange thing that he said Ameen, 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 and then turned around and didn't explain it. So afterwards they asked him, they said, Ya Rasulullah sallallahu, O Messenger of Allah, that's a strange thing we saw you do today. You said Ameen, 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 and you didn't turn around and explain it to us. Why did you say Ameen? So he said that as he stepped up the first step, the angel visited him and said, cursed be the one that their parents, or one of their parents, that one of them is still living and they find no way to paradise. Say Ameen, Muhammad. And he said Ameen. And when he stepped up on the second step, he said, cursed be the one that Ramadan comes and he finds no forgiveness. Say Ameen, Muhammad, Ameen. And the third step, when he stepped up, he said, cursed be the one that hears your name mentioned and doesn't send salutations and prayers upon you. Say Ameen, Muhammad. So as a result, when we say, he said Ameen, and all of us now we hear the Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu name mentioned, we always send the prayers upon him. But in that second one, when he said that, cursed be the one that Ramadan comes and they find no forgiveness, that's what we're in now. And so this is the time when we seek the mercy, we seek the forgiveness, and we seek the release from the hellfire. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has favored us to live to see another one, and that is a great ni'mah from Allah, because Ramadan is very different from Hajj. In the beginning you mentioned about that we're going to the Hajj. Well, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala He calls you to come to the Hajj. He calls you to come to the Hajj, you have to do the effort, you go to it. But the Ramadan is something that He brings to you. He brings to you and I the humanity. So in other words, Ramadan is coming, which we say is the Muslim. It ends up being our best friend. And it becomes our best friend because it's an opportunity for that cleansing, that realignment, and purifying ourselves in a way that's pleasing to Allah. And He favors us because it's the one thing and the only thing that we can do for Allah. We can't do anything for Him, but He permits us to do this one thing for Him, and that is the fast of Ramadan. So we're very thankful that we're in this month. And alhamdulillah, and also in light of that, I'm reflecting because we're talking about Muhammad Ali in the La ilaha wa inna rajiun, and my last encounter and being with him was at the Eid al-Fitr prayer that we had a prayer in Philadelphia, and he came to the prayer. That's my last time actually being in his presence and being with him. The several times that I was with him in this life, but that was the last time I was with him at a time when we prayed the Eid prayer together. And his impact in the world, it impacted me greatly because I was of the generation that was living and growing up when he came up and he became known to the world. He became known to the people in America. When he won the championship in 1960, when he won the Olympic gold medal, I was 4 years old in 1960 when he won that. And when he won the championship with Sonny Liston, I was 8 years old when he won that in 1964. And I can remember both of them. I remember the joy that was there just in the fact of a young man that was black that's coming out of America that had risen up and became in the limelight and as good as he was, and with a different spirit and a spirit of confidence and a spirit of strength, reinforcement, and conviction. That was really wavering at that time because that was a time when there was segregation, when we actually couldn't go to the same bathrooms, couldn't drink from the same water fountains, couldn't go into the same stores. In other words, for your generation, you can go into the Woolworths or any of the Walmarts, any store that's there, and you can go in there and have a sandwich and have a drink of water, whatever they have available. But when we were coming up, that wasn't available. You couldn't do that. And he was the one who... when he won the championship, and then he began to voice a concern about us having the ability to be better and to be acknowledged as a people of value. And so that was a time period when we were still living in the psychological chains of the slavery, where they had actually characterized our people as being a worthless people, not valued to have any substance or any meaning or relevance relative to the whole human family. And so very, very, very rarely did you hear anybody speaking up for the injustices that was done to our people in America, and there were no major voices that could have been heard by others that were speaking on our behalf. And so as a result, when he started speaking like that, it made a difference because he was speaking out of the pain that we all were feeling. So many of us, our mothers were cleaning rich other people's houses just to help to make the food be on the table where we lived at. That was the way that we came forward. And many of us, all of us, heard the word where we were being called the N-word by somebody else. Yeah. So there was great divide, and there was great evidence of complete and absolute, without doubt, racism that was vibrating throughout the country at that time. And when he won the championship, and being a young man winning the championship, when it was like no way that he would be expected to win it, at the same time, because he had such a confidence in his speech and talking and belief in himself to do it, there were many people that were just hoping that he would be annihilated. And so when he actually won the championship and then was even speaking even more, and he said, and then not only was he the greatest, he said, and I shook up the world, but also I'm pretty.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, and basically anything that had anything to do with a negative, they always identified it or labeled it as being black.
Mm-hmm.
And so that means that they made you think that you had to be other than black in order to be beautiful. You had to be other than black to be good. You had to be other than black to be of value. So these were the psychological subliminal effects that they had placed in us relative to how they had made us be seen around the whole earth. Those who were the descendants of the slaves that were there in America, not to be considered or spoken for by anybody else in the world. Like, don't worry about them. They just have no value. They're nothing anyway. Don't worry about it. And you just do what you're doing, and we'll go about our business. So Muhammad Ali, who at that time was Cassius Marcellus Clay, and then he became Cassius X, and then he became Muhammad Ali. And he was one who, that consciousness was in him because of those experiences. Mm-hmm. And then upon hearing the teachings of Elijah Muhammad, he actually was introduced to the Nation of Islam by way of the papers, the Muhammad Speaks. And he had been reading that paper, and when he was training in Florida, he was training down in Florida for a fight, and he saw someone that was selling the newspapers, and he told him, I've been reading that paper. And that started a conversation and relationship among them. The brother was named Sam X. He ended up becoming Captain Sam, and ultimately he became Brother Abdul Rahman Muhammad, who was like the imam and the minister in Florida. And that was the relationship that he was the one who actually invited him into to the Nation of Islam. And then by way of him being in it, then he actually ended up meeting Malcolm, because by way of that relationship with Abdul Rahman. And then upon meeting Malcolm, then ultimately he ended up meeting Elijah Muhammad. Mm-hmm. And Elijah Muhammad had a great influence upon him in that way. So when he won the championship, and then he began to let the world know, he let the whole world know that I am a Muslim. This was a shock to the whole of the Americas, whether it be the Caucasians, whether it be those of African descent, whoever was there in America, as far as our ethnicity, it was a shock to everybody, because nobody was used to any of us being Muslim. And even talking about that we were Muslim, or declaring we were, and the ones who were there had no loud voice to be heard by everybody across the country to acknowledge that in this Christian country there's some people that are Muslims. And so he brought that forward. And then when he actually came to the point to acknowledge that he was speaking about the injustices that were done by the ruling elite to our people over a period of time, that showed the injustice that had been there, then there was room for saying that we must do something for ourselves. We have to take care of ourselves. We have to build for ourselves. We have to protect for ourselves. And we have to fare for ourselves going forward, seeking our own and not beg of anybody else to have. And so he became the voice in that way that stood begin to stand out, and also be attacked, to try to find something wrong. And so one of the ways that you can silence him, and they did do that, was, okay, we'll silence this process, because what we'll do is we'll induct him into the army. And because back then they had the draft, and the draft was going on because of the Vietnam War, and so they began to ask him to come into the military, as they did so many before him. And all he did was follow the footsteps of the one who he said was his teacher, Elijah Muhammad. Elijah Muhammad refused to go in World War II. Conscientious objector, because he said he was not going to fight someone that had done anything to him. And then Warith Deen Muhammad, which was Elijah Muhammad's son, and Allah be pleased with him, then in 1961, when they tried to induct him, he ended up going to prison for not going in, because they all refused to go fight a war against somebody that hadn't done anything to us, especially on behalf of those who were doing such an injustice to us there in America.
Sure. And
so all of a sudden, then he said the difference was, though, they all had to go to prison. They did the time. Elijah Muhammad was in there for about, I think, 4 years, and Warith Deen Muhammad was in there for about 2 or 3 years. They actually did the time inside the prison. Muhammad Ali, because of the position he was in at the time they did it to him, was able to fight it and take it all the way to the Supreme Court, and ultimately, in the end, he won. Mm-hmm. So at the same time, while he was going through all this, though, he was putting forward and presenting that This is Islam. This is our way of life. And there's a better way of life for us as human beings where we should have a clean life, a wholesome life, a meaningful life. There's more than just the destruction of ourselves or us being destructive because others are trying to destroy us. And therefore, we said we shouldn't smoke, we shouldn't drink, we shouldn't commit adultery, we shouldn't commit fornication, we should take care of our families, we should work, we should do an honest day's work, and we should take care of our families, and we should be honorable people and be dignified, and we should do for self, build for self, and that's what they were promoting to be. Yeah. And the same way, in fact, that one of the famous lines that he did when they said to him, when he said, there's no Vietnamese has done anything wrong to me. They haven't done anything to me. That actually came from when he was in Florida with Brother Abdul Rahman. They were over in the house where the sisters were cooking and making the food. They would sell the things for fundraisers, and the reporters were following him. And so when now he was studying, he was learning about this. He said, so the reporters are here. What should I say? He said, tell them ain't no Viet Cong did nothing to you. So that became the famous line, but it came by way of that. And for us, the youth that were listening to that and experiencing the injustices that had been done in our families, many of us in our families at those times, there's many people in America of African descent that there's histories in their families of the injustices that were done. There's somebody in our families, and almost everyone's family, that was touched by what they did to us, that they're doing now. Again, now it's being broadcast. So and as a matter of fact, I think they're mentioning how Muhammad Ali was like the grandfather of the Black Lives Matter movement. Sure. Because now you'll see how they're killing the blacks and nobody's going to jail for it like it's nothing, but they have been doing it all the time. Right. All of it said, if you go back to Billie Holiday, she made a song called Strange Fruit. So the fruit that was hanging from the tree was the blacks that they was burning and lynching and killing. And they would come there and they would bring their picnic baskets. And that's why we say we don't even use the word picnic. We say we have some kind of gathering, a family gathering, but we don't use picnic because they just say, let's go there while they pick a nigger. And at the same time, while they burn him on the tree, and everybody look at it like it was a hospitable social event to come see. Sure. So she made a song called Strange Fruit. Well, in the experience of us growing in America, all of us in our families had somebody that was part of that. I know for me personally, dealing with Muhammad Ali, when he mentioned how his mother cleaned the houses, my mother cleaned houses, I understood that. But then when the injustice that he would see that somebody stole your bike and make you want to fight, somebody stole my bike with a knife, made me want to fight. At the same time, I look back on how my uncle in the South, as a young man, a white man shot him in front of everybody. Because they used to shoot us in front of everybody, and nobody would do anything about it because it was a white man, a black man. If you was a black man, it didn't matter. Your life didn't matter. So if a white man shot you, you just take it, like it or lump it. But you couldn't do anything about it. So they ran in the house. This is my father told me the story. They ran in the house and told their father, Daddy, Mr. Such and Such just shot Roy. He said, where he at? They said he right out front. So he went outside. They said their father, my grandfather, walked right past his son. You know how we would be today. We would be like, oh, my baby, he did that, try to get him and revive him and all that. No, he said he walked right past his son when they told him who did it, walked right down the road to the man's house and told him, said, sir, I just left my son where you left him. If he die, I'm killing you. And as a result, though, by Allah's grace, he didn't die. But by knowing that story, every time I would be with my Uncle Roy, and him and my father, they were very close. My Uncle Roy lived in Baltimore, we lived in Chester, so that we always came back and stayed at each other's house. I used to always be looking at him because the bullet that went through his head, the indentation was always there. Allah. And I'm saying, this is the son that they just shot, left for dead, and nobody was going to do anything about it because that's what white folks did to black people back then. All the blacks have some kind of measure of that kind of story in their experience. During the times when Cassius Clay was coming forward, and he was experiencing the same thing there in Louisville over there, the segregation that they had, and we were experiencing the same thing across the whole country that made us easily say that this white person, this Caucasian, had done a deep injustice to us, all the way from slavery into what they were doing then. And he had the voice to say it, and at the same time, he had the courage in a way that it brought the attention to it. And at the same time, when they tried to bring him down and bring him to the point of, say, least resistance, to bring him into the military, to quiet him down, he followed the suit of those who went before him and said, no, I'm not stepping forward. I'm not going, I'm not fighting somebody to do anything to me. And if it means that you kill me, then you kill me, but I'm not killing them.
Excellent. That's a perfect place to stop. We're going to have a report right now, inshallah ta'ala. When we come back, we're going to discuss how he used his platform to transform society through his advocacy of social change and talking about social injustices. We'll talk about how he used his platform to change the world. But we have a report right now, and we're going to be right back, inshallah ta'ala.
Born Cassius Clay was born in Louisville, Kentucky on January 17th in 1942. Muhammad Ali became an Olympic gold medalist in 1960 and the world heavyweight boxing champion in 1964. Following his suspension for refusing military service, Ali reclaimed the heavyweight title 2 more times during the 1970s, winning famed bouts against Joe Frazier and George Foreman along the way. Diagnosed with Parkinson's disease in 1984, Ali has devoted much of his time to philanthropy, earning the Presidential Medal of Freedom in 2005. At the age of 12, Ali discovered his talent for boxing through an odd twist of fate. His bike was stolen, and Ali told the police officer Joe Martin that he wanted to beat up the thief. "Well, you better learn how to fight before you start challenging people," Martin reportedly told him at the time. In addition to being a police officer, Martin also trained young boxers at a local gym. In 1960, Ali won a spot on the U.S. Olympic boxing team and traveled to Rome, Italy to compete. At 6 feet 3 inches, Ali was an imposing figure in the ring, but he also became known for his sliding speed and fancy footwork. After winning his first 3 bouts, Ali defeated Zbigniew Pietrzkowski from Poland to win the light heavyweight gold medal. After his Olympic victory, Ali was heralded as an American hero. He soon turned professional with the backing of the Louisville sponsoring group and continued overwhelming all opponents in the ring. Ali took out British heavyweight champion Henry Cooper in 1963 and then knocked out Sonny Liston in 1964 to become the heavyweight champion of the world. Often referring to himself as the greatest, Ali was not afraid to sing his own praises. He was known for boasting about his skills before a fight and for his colorful descriptions and phrases. In one of his more famously quoted descriptions, Ali told reporters that he could float like a butterfly, sting like a bee in the boxing ring. Grown to that global iconic rank in the athletic world, Ali began doing some spiritual searching and decided to join the Nation of Islam in 1964. At first, he called himself Cassius X, before settling on the name Muhammad Ali.
Oh, for the past 6 years, I would say, after hearing a lot of teachings on Negro history and who we were before we got here, and 1 and 1 makes 2.
You feel your affiliation with the Muslim religion, being a follower of the Muslim religion, had something to do with your winning the championship?
Well, I would say so. My religion is the only thing that I can give me credit for pulling me through, because 99 out of 100 seemed to see no possibility of me winning. The newspaper reporters and everybody all over the world condemned me. They said it would be a mismatch, and couldn't nobody believe it. So my prayers to Allah and faith in my religion, living a clean, righteous life, I have to say that's what pulled me.
A few years later, Ali started a different kind of fight with his outspoken views against the Vietnam War. Drafted into the military in April 1967, he refused to serve on the grounds that he was a practicing Muslim minister with religious beliefs that prevented him from fighting. He was arrested for committing a felony and almost immediately stripped of his world title and boxing license. The U.S. Department of Justice pursued a legal case against Ali, denying his claim for conscientious objector status. He was found guilty of violating selective service laws and sentenced to 5 years in prison in June 1967, but remained free while appealing his conviction. Unable to compete professionally in the meantime, Ali missed more than 3 prime years of his athletic career. The U.S. Supreme Court eventually overturned the conviction in June 1971. Prior to the Supreme Court's decision, Ali returned to the ring in 1970 with a win over Derek Quarry. The following year, Ali took on Joe Frazier in what has been called the fight of the century. Frazier and Ali went toe-to-toe for 14 rounds before Frazier dropped Ali with a vicious left hook in the 15th. Ali and Frazier locked horns for their grudges match in Quezon City, Philippines in 1975. Dubbed the Thriller in Manila, the bout nearly went the distance with both men delivering and absorbing tremendous punishment. However, Frazier's trainer threw in the towel after the 14th round, giving the hard-fought victory to Ali.
Who was bearing me up, too power, too strong. I proved that Allah is God. Elijah Muhammad is a messenger, and I have faith in them. And regardless of the world and the pressure, I made it an easy night because Allah has power over all things. And if you believe in Him, nothing, even George Foreman, will look like a baby.
In his retirement, Ali has devoted much of his time to Islam and philanthropy. He announced that he has Parkinson's disease in 1984, a degenerative neurological condition, and has been involved in raising funds for the Muhammad Ali Parkinson Center in Phoenix, Arizona. Over the years, Ali has also supported the Special Olympics and the Make-A-Wish Foundation, among other organizations. Muhammad Ali has traveled to numerous countries, including Mexico and Morocco, to help out those in need. In 1998, he was chosen to be a United Nations Messenger of Peace because of his work in developing countries.
You who don't believe in God, if I told you that this glass sprang into existence, this glass made itself, no man made this glass, would you believe it? Would you believe I just told you this thing made itself?
Despite the progression of his disease, Ali remained active in public life. Universally regarded as one of the greatest boxers in history, Ali's stature as a legend continues to grow even as his physical state diminishes. He has been celebrated not only for his remarkable athletic skills, but for his willingness to speak his mind and his courage to challenge the status quo.
You think about your own death much?
5 times a day when I pray. And see, this life is short. This life is a preparation for the eternal life. I might die tomorrow, I might die next week. I don't know when I die.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Welcome back to our episode of Gates to Goodness, where we're discussing the life of Muhammad Ali, rahimahullah alayh, and all the blessings that he has left us with on this earth. We ask Allah Ta'ala to bless him in this month, and we're discussing his life, his legacy, and all the contributions he left with our beloved guest, Imam Farid Rasul. So we're going to pick up where we left off, inshallah Ta'ala. And, you know, as Allah Ta'ala said in the Quran, كنت خير أخرجت للناس تعمرون بالمعروف وتنهون عن المنكر وتؤمن بالله. كنتم خير أمة أخرجت للناس تعمرون بالمعروف وتنهون عن المنكر وتؤمن بالله. So Allah Ta'ala says that you are the best nation to have ever risen from mankind for mankind because you command the good and you forbid the evil and you believe in Allah. So when I think about the life of Muhammad Ali, he wasn't an alim, he wasn't a scholar, he wasn't learned in the regards that we see today in terms of memorization of the Quran, but he was able to articulate the message of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He was able to be a da'i, to be a caller to Allah, because he commanded the good and he forbid the evil. He was uncompromising in his truth. He was, steadfast in what he believed in. So when we think about athletes today who are like some of the LeBron James or Floyd Mayweather, who are at the top of their athleticism and are major figures all around the world, but at the same time they're afraid to talk about the social injustices. They're afraid to talk about the poverty, the systemic oppression, mass incarceration. Even some of our imams, people that are learned within communities, refuse to touch these subjects. So what is some of the things that distinguish Muhammad Ali and perhaps the time that he lived in and the mentors that he had and education he had and training that he has that distinguish him as a Muslim from some of the leaders and athletes that we have today?
Well, I think that first, like you said, is the conviction of your belief in Allah, and we see that he had a sincerity and a loyalty to his teacher, and I think I mentioned that before. We always talk about the great ones like in Malcolm and Muhammad Ali and Worth Dean, or they talk about Farrakhan. They talk about so many of them across America that were influenced by this man Elijah Muhammad, and he had something that he instilled in them that they actually came forward with great courage. And they don't want us to study him because they don't want that to be a courage that we carry forward in a generation of the people today. So they blur the vision to be able to look towards him and see what did that really represent that these people were affected by like that. But I would say that Muhammad was convicted to not forgetting what he really came from, and not forgetting who he really was. And so therefore, no matter what he had aspired to, he never saw himself being other than the same guy that still laying on the crate, except that he was enlightened to stand up and make the difference while this guy is still waiting for the light to come on, but this guy is still him. He always saw himself as his people. And so that's why, even what you just said, how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that you are the best people evolved for the best community evolved for the benefit and good of all mankind, because you enjoin the good, you forbid the evil, and you believe in Allah. And so the actual reality that you have to see going forward is absolute, without a doubt, belief in Allah. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one who calls you into the duties that will cause you trials and tribulations and hardships, in order to bring you to a point that he can favor you and bless you. And so many times people, when they fear other than Allah, then they're afraid. I used to talk about the kind of people who they have gained all the wealth and the riches of the world, but they don't have a voice to speak about the injustices there because they're afraid to lose what they had that they think makes their world. And so as a result, because they are fearing other than Allah. And Allah is the sustainer of all of us, but they don't have that conviction going forward because they're thinking their foundations from something else. So they don't have the courage. So they actually fear other than Allah, and they actually chase the dunya that you can never catch, versus that they chase being pleasing to Allah, and then the dunya will chase you. So they don't see themselves being able to have a life outside the dunya that they think makes their life. But if you think that the dunya makes your life, then if Allah tests you with the dunya being gone, do you consider you don't have a life? So you'll commit suicide because you say there is no life, because you put the value on the material in life? No. And Muhammad Ali is one who Allah tested him and made him an example in that, because when I think of him, I think of the commonality, the common person he was to little young guys like us, that when we actually end up being around him, it was like us to be together right now. He never made you feel like he was this great guy over here and you was left. Yeah. It was like we were all the same family. We all Muslims, alhamdulillah, and we want the world to know we Muslims. Allah made us Muslims. We happy about that. You gave back your slave name, I gave back my slave name. Then we ain't got no slave name no more. We free, and we Muslims before Allah. And we the best community evolved for the benefit and good of mankind, and we're going forward even if it means that it's with our last breath and we don't have anything except our belief in Allah to say La ilaha illallah. It's enough. Alhamdulillah. So he had that kind of spirit going forward. And even when you look at how Allah transformed him to be the one who's made such an impact on the world, the things that were outside the ring. Because when he got challenged with the Parkinson's, you go back to Ayub. And Ayub is the one that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala shows us he gave him the greatest of challenges. He was wealthy, lost his wealth. He was powerful, influential, lost his power and influence. Then he was healthy and lost his health, all the way down to the point that the parasites start eating his body. But through that whole process, he never complained. And when you hear, when he was always satisfied with his Lord, and no matter what you hear in Muhammad Ali's life, the conversations and the whispers that he made when he was able to speak in a whisper, and when it came out, he was always reflecting the people back to Allah.
Yeah, he even said when they asked him about how did he feel about the development of the sickness, he said, Allah gave me this sickness to show me that I'm not the greatest, he is. SubhanAllah.
He always reflected back to Allah.
Tawheed.
So he didn't make any complaint. In fact, I was listening to a report from his daughter, And they were saying that someone, because he always was always wanting to be one who was giving back to humanity. And somebody younger that was diagnosed with a disease. And they were saying because Muhammad was dealing with the Parkinson's, maybe he could be inspiration to the one with the disease. And so anyway, he spoke to him, and he kept saying to them that they would be better and they would get better. And at the same time, what he said to his children was, he said, he told them, they asked him, how do he deal with it? He said he doesn't even think about it, right? He doesn't like walk around thinking about, I got Parkinson's. No, he just thinks about the mercy that Allah had to give him breath and what he can do with the breath he got, whatever condition he's in. So he didn't think about, I got Parkinson's, I can't do that. He thought about, I got a breath, I got another day in life, what can I do? So he didn't think about it. Then he said to his children, he said, so you think the people know I got Parkinson's? And they just laughed at him. Dad, they know. Everybody can see you got Parkinson's.
MashaAllah. SubhanAllah. He was such an amazing figure.
Yeah, he was really amazing, and he was very humorous. You know, he would make you smile. So, but his conviction was there, and the things he did in the way of the humanity, even to the point where he back in 1990. He was responsible for bringing home 15 Americans that was hostages in Iraq.
I'm sorry, man. We have a phone call from Muhammad from Gambia. So, Brother Muhammad, welcome to the show. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Wa alaikum wa barakatuhu. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. How are you, Brother Muhammad?
Inshallah, alhamdulillah, I'm enjoying your program.
Alhamdulillah, Rabbil Alameen. Do you have anything to contribute?
Yes, I'm very happy that you're featuring one of the greatest athletes in the world, Muhammad Ali, my namesake.
MashaAllah.
And some of what you're playing right now, it's educating the whole world. Some of the clips that you're playing, some of us, we never watched it, we don't know about it, and we love your guest on the show, what he's saying exactly. It's very important for people to know where they come from and for them to stand up for who they are. Never to lose their identity. This is what helps us in Islam. So Muhammad Ali is somebody who rejected being a slave. He rejected his slave name after he found Islam. And inshallah, he carried the message until his death. And I believe this is what is important, because today we have a lot of intellectual warfare going on. We have the West trying to tell us who we are or who we are not. And they try to reprogram our intellects through the TVs or the music videos or the movies that they show us every day. So we pray for Huda, inshallah. We pray for brothers like yourself for coming up with such programs. And we pray for the people who sponsor Huda TV programs and everybody, inshallah. So we are telling you to keep it up, inshallah. And I think these are very important programs for people like us, inshallah.
Alhamdulillah. Thank you so much, Brother Muhammad, for the inspiration and encouragement. You know, oftentimes we're having these conversations in there to the cameras, and we don't really see the reaction of the people. So we ask Allah Ta'ala to increase us all for the presenters, the people that allow this to happen, and also the people that are home viewing this, inshallah Ta'ala. May Allah Ta'ala increase us all in good. Bi-idhnillahi Ta'ala. Thank you, Brother Muhammad. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Inshallah, Imam.
Alhamdulillah. You know, I was about to say, and it fits right in the script of what we're saying, because this is the humanity and this is the responsibility that we have as Muslims to rise to be those that are that best community involved for the benefit and good of all mankind. And then when there were some hostages that were left in Iraq, right when Iraq had invaded Kuwait, and they let the women and children go. They let the men go. I think about 15 of them. So Ramsey Clark, who used to be the Attorney General under Lyndon Baines Johnson when he was the president, and Ramsey Clark, who was the Attorney General then, he spends his whole life now working against injustices all over the globe, especially injustices to the people, indigenous people in America. And he was the one who requested of Muhammad Ali to please go and meet with Saddam Hussein to ask for this, to help this organization to ask for the freedom of the hostages. And that's exactly what's supposed to happen, because why wouldn't you ask a Muslim to go speak to another Muslim? And we as the Muslims should be able to go to any of the Muslims throughout the earth. If there's a problem among the Muslims, we're supposed to come together ourselves, bring the feuding parties together, and then we'll solve the problem. And there's no voice like that among the Muslims that's bringing us together like that. So anyway, they used him and they criticized him. The president didn't agree with him going. The other people were trying to say that he was doing it, trying to elevate his own name, and he was dealing with the Parkinson's then. So anyway, he responded to the humanity that Ramsey Clark and those who were with him were trying to do, and he answered their appeal, and he went. And in the process, it says that he waited over a week, and he had to go through all these different other people meeting him and interviews and meeting with all different meetings that they wanted to meet with him, while he was also suffering with his Parkinson's, so much so that he ran out of his medicine. And he ran out of his medicine before, and he still didn't have a confirmed meeting with Saddam Hussein, right? So the night he ran out of his medicine, then they said he couldn't even know how to get out of bed. So they brought him to, because they had a press conference coming, so all the reporters came, and he sat there, and Herbert Muhammad, he told them, listen, we're thankful that you came to meet Mr. Muhammad today, but he can't answer any questions, so please don't ask none, but we're going to go back now, because he can't speak today. So they went back. Then the people over there in the hospital, they had the kind of medicine that he needed to help him with his disease. And they said, we have his medicine, but we want for him in exchange a picture.
Oh, wow.
And they gave him the medicine and it helped him. And the next day he had a meeting with Saddam.
SubhanAllah.
And when he went in there, they had the meeting and they greeted each other. And he said that you can know for sure and trust for sure that I will go back and make an honest report about what I witnessed here in Iraq. Saddam Hussein in exchange at that conversation, at the end of their conversation, said, I will not let Hajj Muhammad return back to America without having many of the people that are here with him. And as a result, he went back with all the hostages. Then the hostages were saying, to Muhammad, because he was sick. They said to him, Muhammad, they want to come see you now. They want to come visit. He said, no, they don't come. They don't have to come here. No, they don't have to come. They don't owe me anything. They don't owe me anything. They don't owe me nothing. They owe Allah. They don't owe me nothing. And then he said, but yeah, they want to meet you, Muhammad. So he came in. They were meeting. And one guy was saying, Muhammad, I don't know what to say, champ. I don't know what words to say that. He said, it's not me. It's Allah. Thank Allah. It's Almighty God that does it. He uses people. He just used me. It's not me. It's Allah. And that's the part that we have to see in our experience in our life and what we are and what we do, that we do for the sake of Allah to be the benefit to the humanity in the way we should be. And one of the other things that's always encouraging from him, because he's the one who made it easy for us to change our names because he had done it. But he also made it easy for us to build masjids in America because he took his wealth. And him and Herbert, they actually built a masjid from the ground up. They're the first ones I know that built a masjid from the ground up. So we getting money? Okay, we building a masjid from the ground up. Right there in Chicago, they built it. And so they actually put their monies to the things. And I heard some people that were crying. One man was crying that they interviewed about, because he had the opportunity to travel with Muhammad for a year while he was in training, while he was doing some things. And in that year that he was training, that he was on tour and what he was doing, and this reporter was traveling with him, and he said that Muhammad was giving out $100 bills to everybody who was standing in line waiting to see him. And he said, Muhammad, why are you doing it? Why are you doing this, champ? Champ said, because this $100 to them is like 10,000 to us in America.
SubhanAllah.
That's how open-handed he was. That's how generous he was. So he was Jawad. He was open-handed and generous. He was Muhammad. He was the trustworthy. So he was Ali. He was the one that would do what? Would sleep in the bed and be the one to die for you. For the purpose of being a better for your life going forward. So these are the kind of inspirations that he brought forward, and all the time he kept on showing in the ultimate reality that it is what? It's Allah that we must turn to. It's Allah that we give the credit to. It's all because of Allah, so alhamdulillah. And it's all from Allah, so we say shukrullah, thank Allah. And in that's the life that he led, and he also led that life all the way to the end with what? No complaint. So there you go back to Ayub, who the only thing that happened when the parasites end up eating his body, when he finally said something to Allah, he said, Ya Allah, I have no complaint. I'm just saying if you don't stop these parasites from eating my body, they're going to eat my heart. If they eat my heart, I won't have anything left to worship you with.
SubhanAllah. Thank you very much, Imam. Wallahi, the time is up so fast. We have so much material we didn't even cover about the life of our brother Muhammad Ali. But we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to bless him and increase him in his grave and have mercy on him, and for Allah to love him and make him his friend. Dear viewers, thank you for joining us to another episode of Gates to Goodness. We ask Allah ta'ala to increase you in good in this month and to accept your worship. I'm your host, Brother Youssef Kromah, and I look forward to seeing you tomorrow night. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.